So welcome to Value Matters, your one-stop destination for everything about driving maximum value in supply chain. My name is Johann, I'm your host, and I'm here to bring you these success stories, the insights, the strategies from experts from all around the world. Today we'll be discussing predictive analytics. More precisely, we'll be discussing its role, the realistic expectations, the specific challenges, as well as, of course, I would say, the return on investment of such projects. So welcome on board, fasten your seatbelt, and get ready for a deep dive into the world of value creation in supply chain. It's really time to make value matters. So, welcome to Value Matters, a non-sponsored podcast whose only aim is to help you ensure your supply chain is effectively profitable. This is already episode 4, and I'd like first to thank all our listeners for their raising interest in the topics we discuss here, so namely supply chain, decision-making, and return on investment. Those are the very heart of our company's success. Those are the very heart of this podcast as well. I'm receiving already, I won't say tons yet, but already quite a few feedbacks, and for sure way more than I expected, mostly positive ones. So thank you very much. This means that you find value in this podcast, and this means Value Matters delivers on its promises as well. So it's really great to hear. Today, I'm 100% excited and totally thrilled to introduce a great expert in demand planning and sales and operation planning, but also a recognized thought leader, but also an author, but also a trainer. He is director at the IBF, the Institute of Business Forecasting and Planning. And let's add to this already quite impressive list that from a personal perspective, he's been quite influential in launching this podcast as well, as he himself is the host of a very successful one, the IBF On Demand podcast that you could find on YouTube and on any podcast platform, including your favorite ones for sure. I'd like to start this episode by introducing him with a nod to his podcast, and he's now famous. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is another episode of Value Matters. I'm Johann, your ROI obsessed host, and today I'm totally thrilled to welcome Eric Wilson. Eric, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
I love it. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'm excited about being on this podcast. I'm glad there's other value that's being put out there in the supply chain and business forecasting in podcast that other people can consume as well. This is I've checked out the 3 episodes you have so far. I mean, it's exciting to have this available for people, and I encourage people to continue to support this and any people that are growing our field.
Exactly. And it's really great to have you on the guest seat for this time. So might change a little bit from you usually. To start, I'd like to maybe to let you introduce yourself. So who you are, and more precisely, what's your professional journey so far? How you became the Eric Wilson we all know now.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I came to this role after a few decades of practitioner experience. I have the scars to prove it. I worked as demand planner, transformation, leads and building, planning and SNOP and supply chain processes inside the organization, multiple companies, different sizes, different industries as well. About 3 or 4 years ago, I came on full time with the Institute of Business Forecasting, and now I'm relegated to a podcast host and trainer. But really, what I do is I'm that liaison between what's best or next practices in the industry and help share them with other companies. I love what I'm doing now because being able to really help organizations grow and connect the dots with other organizations, I love doing that.
Sure, it must be so interesting and so rewarding from an intellectual perspective. And it's great that you came from the field, from the battlefield, I would say, from the trenches.
I have the scars. I can prove it,
And you mentioned the IBF, so maybe for some people in the audience that might be an unknown organization, can you tell us more about the IBF, its role, the kind of initiatives you're having there?
Up to it's actually the largest membership organization for people in our fields. It's about fostering the growth of business forecasting, demand planning, predictive analytics, S&OP, and related fields. So it's really what makes it unique is it's built by practitioners for practitioners. So it's not this consulting level, theoretical level. It's really built by people who are doing this and sharing their experience. And that's what IBF is about. It's about sharing experiences. It have a vast body of knowledge. I have my podcast, IBF On Demand, but we also have a lot of content that people have contributed through articles. We do conferences. We do free town halls. So you can check it out at ibf.org. I said there's a vast body of knowledge. A lot of it's free, but there is actually membership as well. If you want to become a member, highly recommend it. You do get, yes, you get this, you get that, you get discounts, you get things before other people don't get. But the main thing you get is you're supporting an industry that you're most likely probably involved in already. So you're helping support that field is what you're doing.
Okay, great. And you mentioned that this is the largest organization on the field. How many members?
It's 50,000 members worldwide. It's a global organization.
50,000. Wow.
I was actually in Amsterdam and Paris last week. So, I mean, it's a global organization that we have. So it's 50,000 worldwide.
Wow, impressive, impressive. So all of the IBF members, please listen to the IBF On Demand podcast for sure, but let's give a test for Value Matters as well.
Please, I encourage it.
So in this episode today, we'll be discussing predictive analytics. We'll be discussing its role, maybe what are the realistic expectations regarding this technology, what are the specific challenges one might be facing when trying to implement this, and of course, given we are Value Matters, we'll be discussing the ROI of such initiatives, right? Does it make sense from an economic point of view, or is it just boiling waters for the pleasure of boiling waters? For sure, it's not. In 2021, you published a comprehensive book titled Predictive Analytics for Business Forecasting and Planning. And this is a great book, but I would say this is, why did you decide that? I'm really curious about that. Why did you decide to write your own book on that? There's, I would say, already quite a lot of books discussing this topic, but what makes yours unique among those?
Yeah, well, I think what makes my book, you have a couple questions in there. Why did I write it and what makes it unique? And first of all, what makes it unique? You said there's a lot of books out there, and I would actually disagree when it comes to books for demand planners, for people who are in business forecasting. There wasn't as many books out there. There's a lot of books on, machine learning and AI, and things. And there was books out there as far as, really from the theoretical and the, consulting. What didn't exist was a book for practitioners, people who are doing demand planning day-to-day type of operation. I said, I came from that field. The reason I wrote the book is because for years, everyone lived inside their own four walls, time series world. Hey, what happened last week, last month? Okay, let's extrapolate that pattern going forward. And we used our internal sales order type of data inside our own four walls to extrapolate patterns. There's a whole other world out there of external variables, of predictive analytics that I wanted to introduce people to, kind of encourage, excite people about what else is possible, and kind of lead them in a journey to demand planning 2.0 per se.
Okay, so that's the main difference is it's for practitioners, is really dedicated to the demand planning field, forecasting, and that's why it's so helpful for practitioners. So if you are a practitioner who's willing to learn more about how predictive analytics could help in your specific domain, this is definitely one of the books you have to read. Thank you.
I mean, full disclosure, I don't have, code in there. You're not going to come out of this coding in Python, but what you're going to get is if you knew exponential smoothing, now you're going to know a little bit more about multiple regression and decision trees and how those work. Not that you have to recreate a neural network, but you understand what an input layer is and those aspects. So it introduces them into the concept of low code type of options that may be out when there's technology providers offering services, they understand what they're offering now.
Okay. Makes it a great read for sure. Highly recommended. So now let's deep dive into the topic of predictive analytics themselves. So apply to demand planning and forecasting. I definitely wanted to have you on the show to discuss this specific topic. And in fact, you've been on the list, I would say, since the beginning of the podcast, when I first thought of what would be the different themes I'd like to discuss. Let me tell you why. You're at No4 on this specific topic. You're a speaker, you're a trainer, you're a podcast host. So you're a well-recognized thought leader in this area. This means you're in live daily contact with tens of companies, hundreds of practitioners, maybe even more than that. So you're definitely in the base place to see how this worldwide community is really embracing change, embracing predictive analytics in real life, and the kind of issues or challenges they might be facing, right? And so far, when you maybe people do some research on the web or goes to conference and so on, you might be facing with two opposite opinions. On one side, you have consulting firms, software vendors that are widely sharing case studies of companies that have embraced predictive analytics to really revolutionize their practice. They've got some fantastic performance out of it, and that's awesome. And on the other side, when discussing with companies, sometimes with the very same companies as well, we still see that their daily business is heavily supported by Excel spreadsheets, and they are very far from those shiny predictive analytics topics that were discussed first. So it seems that there's a difference, that there's initiatives that maybe not failed, but not yet landed to each people in the company, and it's not yet effectively rolled out. Do you agree with that, or maybe you have a different point of view given the reach you have in the community?
No, I agree exactly what you're saying. And I chuckle because you mentioned even inside the same company where you have these, individual proof of concept case studies that are done, generally, a consultant that's promoting, hey, look what we did. Then you talk to other people on the side of the same company, and it's like they're miles away from what was going on. They're still operating in Excel, as you said. So you do see that inside the same companies, and you do see a broad spectrum right now as far as individual use cases, case studies that are being highly promoted. And you're seeing a lot of the people working in it and saying, hey, I haven't really changed a lot of what I've done. So you do see both sides of that. And I think because there's the as far as adoption of it, it's not across the board inside organizations. They haven't really focused on, really making it part of a daily process across the entire organization. There's pockets inside of organizations that are really driven a lot by consultants, that driven a lot by the new technology they may have purchased. But it really isn't processed across the entire organization. That's really what we're seeing that adoption with yet. And it's proven out over time. If you look at from a predictive analytics standpoint, external data. IBF does a lot of research. We have 50,000 members. Let's ask them questions. So we do a lot of research. In 2003, 2008, around that time frame, there was about 3% of companies out there using external data. In 2018, so this is 10 years later, it's up to 28%. So by the time when I wrote my book, less than a third of the companies out there were doing anything with external data. Everything was time series, everything was internal data. Now that number, we're over the 3%, so we're up to close to 40%. That's still not half. So half the companies out there are still not using any type of even external data point to try to figure out what's happening inside their own four walls.
And with this experience and understanding, do you think that it depends on the size of a company? Maybe with big companies having more budgets to invest in that, and therefore being the first to grab the low-hanging fruit of this technology, or is it the opposite, that the big companies are at the same time so big that changing anything in the process is a nightmare, and it takes way longer than its smaller ones who are more agile?
Yes, the size does matter in this case. We generally see the larger companies where you have those pockets of analytics, being explored, being, different things being done, because they have the capability, not as an entire company, but in the small area, try to do things, which kind of leads to that last discussion we just had. You have pockets of excellence and pockets of analytics, but you don't see it across the whole company. With larger companies, they have some, capital they can employ. They have the people, resources, so they do these use case scenarios. And small companies, the problem is some of these companies, the demand planner also has a purchasing hat on, or the demand planner and has to do this as well. So a lot of people, resource-wise, they don't have the resources they're just putting out fires a lot of time. They're not really looking to, hey, how can we plan? How can we utilize predictive analytics? Let's do this project over here. They don't have the resource and time to do the project. That said, I've seen small companies have some great use cases, but they're the anomalies sometimes.
Okay, so from your understanding, it's mostly having time to conduct such initiatives that's lacking. That's the reason why it doesn't roll out, or it doesn't just happens really as it's supposed to be, because the capability is there.
Exactly.
It's not I mean, it's advanced technologies, but it's not rocket science. We're not going to land on Mars with it's not that complicated to use such technology, and there's high promises. It's really something that could be strategical to the performance of a company.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at any kind of analytics, it's still people. You got to have a person that has the skill set, has the time, has the resources. You're going to need process. And if you don't have a really cross-functional or a process that's going to, really advocate for the analytics use, then it's not going to work. You're going to have data. And unless you can get the right data, someone can help you get that data, it's not going to work. Then the analytics and technology is going to do something. But the smaller the company, you're going to have strained resources on people. You're not going to have good processes in place sometimes. The data is sparse, or you don't have the right people to get the data you need. So that hinders your capabilities.
Okay, so usually this kind of, from our perspective, each time an AI-based powered project happened to be triggered and to be a success as well, there was a strong vision directly from the CEO, from the C-levels, who really just show the right direction and really push toward that direction, because there are so many reasons for the project to just get stuck at some stage. And when you have this strong support from the C-levels, it really helps. It usually comes with some resources as well, and you could put aside maybe some more easily some firefighting activities to focus on this strategic project from the company as well. So this is definitely something that's mandatory, is having this, I don't know how to say it in English, but the C-levels pushing towards that direction, or pulling the whole company towards this specific direction.
You got to have the advocate on board. You got to have the person that really is
being
the
a
champion.
real sponsor.
Champion. You have to have a little sponsor that's an advocate and cheerleader that really sees the value, as you mentioned, creates that vision and keeps everyone, it really breaks down the barriers and keeps everyone moving towards the goal. You're right. That's critical.
And sometimes aussi is French. Sometimes also we see companies struggling a little bit when the project is triggered, because they don't have the right understanding, the right culture, the right expectations of what they're going to get from this technology and how to implement such a technology. For many companies, it's a technology and that's all, and they implement that in a standard IT project way. But implementing predictive analytics, implementing machine learning algorithms is not implementing an ERP system. It's both are complex. It's not a question of complexity, but it doesn't go the same way, and there's more test and failures, test and learn process with predictive analytics that you don't expect with a usual IT project.
Correct. And yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, from the biggest problem I'm seeing as far as getting adoption, the success of implementations, small or really large, either one. You mentioned the vision part. The biggest problem I'm seeing across the board, biggest problem I'm seeing, is people are trying to implement a software, and their goal is implementation of a software. If that's your goal, that's not a vision, because yeah, I can implement anything, but why? What's it going to do? What's the purpose of that? People don't define that up front, or even measure that as they go, so that everyone's focused on pushing a button and starting a software. If that's your goal, you can achieve that, but that's not going to be success. And that's the biggest problem I'm seeing, is they're not defining success.
Yeah, and when they think of predictive analytics as a software, they mostly think about data, algorithms, flows of data, maybe some interfaces, gestures, but not that much. And in fact, an AI project is mostly about change management. It's not about replicating the good old ways we did things. It's really totally changing the ways. There's new capabilities out there. Let's embrace them. Let's use them to redefine roles, redefine processes, and there's definitely a strong need for change management, really supporting people in this transformation journey, because their role is going to evolve, and they might be sometimes expecting too much for and seeing it as a sci-fi movie, and having fear to lose part of their job. Usually it's not the case. I mean, most AI projects so far requires some human expertise to really it's really combining those that delivers the most value. You can get, for sure, you can put AI and just leave it autonomous and just fire everyone, but you're not going to get as much value, and you're going to stay for long, for sure, as a company, if you do that. But if you bring the knowledge, the expertise, from humans, and bring that with the insights that those technologies could get from the data, you really have the winning combination for the project.
Absolutely. You're going to have the people part of it. You can't. A lot of it's change management. People still the first, piece in the puzzle. So you got to go from there.
Yeah, and from your understanding, so far, is it something that's truly understood by companies, or are there many companies that still see this kind of initiatives as a software implementation project?
The vast majority see it as a software implementation. I said that's the biggest obstacle I see, the biggest hurdle, the biggest reason why a lot of them fail is because they see it as a software implementation. They don't see it as the change management. They don't see it as the process. They don't see it as the people. They don't see the value that they're trying to truly create. They're not connecting those dots. They see it as a software implementation. That's how their project's set up. That's how they go into it. That's how they, okay, success. We have a new project. We have a software. Check the box. We're done.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned value. They don't know. They don't even define the value they expect.
Yeah.
Let's dive into this second part, which is definitely the core of this podcast, which is discussing value of such initiative. I've done my homework before recording this podcast, so I've come across a recent study that claim that right now global predictive analytics market is something like $15 billion, which is already pretty massive, and it's expected to raise to almost $70 billion by 2013. 30, which means 5 times bigger in the coming 6 years, let's say. We are almost in 2024.
Yeah.
So this means company literally spend billions in those technologies. And at the same time, we mentioned some issues, the lack of understanding of the technology, of what it could really bring to the table. Why such massive investments then?
Why is there such massive investment? Because everyone's chasing a shiny penny, is what we call it, or they're chasing the fancy car they think is going to get them someplace quicker without understanding exactly what it is. So I mean, majority of people are chasing what they don't understand and don't know. That's a majority out there, and be honest. Outside of that, there's a lot of people that are going after it because they're chasing either precision, or they're chasing as far as some efficiency. So they're chasing one of those things, thinking it's going to give a result if they get there. So it's, if I can get a better forecast, obviously I can make better decisions. If I can create more efficiency, I'm obviously going to save money. So they're going after an anticipated result without actually looking to see what those results may be.
And when we think about, we talk more precisely about forecasting, demand planning. Definitely, we know that forecasts play a central role in our companies. Not everybody know, not enough people know and notice that, but it's so critical to the company. Almost each and every decision is backed by a type of another forecast. Might it be some 10 years ahead strategical forecast, or decisions, or the daily tiny decisions of moving this specific item from this store to another one, or to send it to a specific location. All of this is supported by forecast. So
yeah, I'll go one step further. Every business decision is based on a lag of what you know now and what you think is going to happen in the future. Think about it. Every business decision is based on that lag, because this is what I know now, and I'm making a decision not for now, but for the future, what I think is going to happen, i.e. a forecast. It could be a structured forecast, could be the CEO's gut feel, but everything's based on a forward-looking projection. So yes.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be formalized to be a forecast. It's sometimes we just call it a bet, but it's some intuition about what's going to happen, what are the pros and cons, and whether it could be profitable or not. So given the forecasts have this central role, I think it's easy to understand why companies are really investing on this specific technology, because they understand that improving that could be a strategical asset for their companies. They could make a real change compared in their performance compared to the competition and so on. Yet I'm always so surprised that the effective measure of the added value of this forecast is, I would say almost, because I want to stay open-minded, but is almost never, I would say almost never done. If you ask any C-levels and about the dollarized added value of their forecast, they invested X million in this demand planning team. What did they get from it? And they will feel very embarrassed because they don't know how to answer that. And on the other side, if you ask the very same question to a demand planner, what's the value of the brand new algorithms he has implemented or his recent work, he will also feel really embarrassed in terms of monetized value. For sure, he will be able to answer very precisely about how much forecast value added, forecast accuracy added he has brought, and all those kind of things, which definitely are valuable. But in terms of P&L for the company, translating all those initiatives into added value and ultimately into return on investment is totally absent. And it's just amazing. From my perspective, it means that companies are investing blindly on those topics, or they are having some strong gut feelings, but there's no facts behind. They never check the facts behind.
I agree. They're chasing a precision without understanding the results of that precision. Exactly. it's the same mentality that people had in implementing the software. People didn't understand the value of the software. The project was implementation of the software. That is my goal. Unfortunately, you're surprised. I mean, I'm surprised too, but I think I see it a lot more than you do, talking with companies and demand planners. But a lot of demand planners, they're just as guilty of chasing a forecasted number, a deterministic forecasting number, and not understanding the decision that's made with that, not understanding the value that comes from that. They're going after precision without understanding the results, without understanding the impact. They chase precision. If I can get that half a point better on my forecast accuracy, I'm going to pat myself on the back, and not understanding what that means, or even if there is value in that. There's a point where there may not even be value in that half a point precision that you're getting. You're spending more time with less results downstream.
I was totally aligned. I recently had the opportunity to attend a conference in New York, the MOFC conference, about the M competitions, those very wide forecasting competitions.
Great example of that.
Yeah, and we were discussing, and what we basically said is, we all acknowledge that forecast is a means to an end. Ask any forecasters, ask any practitioner, they will tell you that, okay, that's not the goal. There's no intrinsic value in forecast. You're not going to trade your forecast and sell it to someone else, except if that's the very specific business model of your company that you're selling forecast. But and at the same time, we are not ensuring that those forecasts, those means, are effectively delivering value. So our practice totally contradicts our sayings. Sorry to put it this way, but it seems that because of the way we practice forecast, the forecast is the end. It's not a means. It's our end. We measure forecast accuracy. We measure tons of very important. I'm not saying they are not important. They are very important metrics, but they are not a guarantee that we do add value to the very end of the line, down to the P&L of the company. And it's something that no company could accept to ignore and not to change.
I agree. I mean, love the M competitions are great. It's a competition. The people they're going into their company and treating forecasting as a competition. I can do this a little bit better. I can do, and they're taking that same mentality. No, you learn from different algorithms and everything, but then you apply it to business application. That's not happening like we need to in our field. To example of that, people are going into an executive S&OP where you're making executive decisions and you're going in showing off your forecast accuracy. Nobody cares in that meeting. You shouldn't care in that meeting. What's my P&L? What's my EBITDA? What's my cash flow? That's what you should care about.
And you mentioned you are just coming back from your IBF trip to Europe, to Amsterdam and Paris. And if I'm right, I was not able to attend, but following the feedbacks on LinkedIn, the conference leaks, this topic of linking forecast to business value has been mentioned quite a lot in this. What were the core ideas?
Yeah, that is actually true. It was our European best practices conference we do in November in Amsterdam every year. And this year, there was a lot of great topic. Jonathan talked on it, Jeff Baker, there was a few others that actually brought it up as well. But there's a lot more discussion on linking forecast value to finance. And I love seeing that in the forum of a lot of practitioners talking about that. And that was a big discussion. We actually had it as a panel discussion at the end, specifically on that topic. So there's a lot of discussion specifically around that this year.
Yeah, and it's something that definitely there's a raising interest, I think. I might be a little bit biased because it's a topic I'm discussing a lot, but I see a lot of interest of practitioners as well as C-levels. I mean, any people in companies trying to ensure that indeed they're getting the bang for the buck and not just spend time on interesting topics, which is what a company should be doing.
Yeah, my recommendation to companies out there, you need to understand 1 point of forecast accuracy or error. What's that mean to your P&L? What's that mean to your top line growth? What's that mean to your cash flow? What does 1 point mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're looking at, I'm going to put these resources, put this time, now you can start doing a ROI, a return on your investment. But unless you understand that math, you can't get there. And the math's not overcomplicated. I mean, it's things that's available inside your financials and working with other people inside your organization. You can help get, or guess what? IBF, we've done research on that. I can tell you on average what 1 point does get you on average, if you really wanted to know.
That's definitely the gap we need to fill, is really getting some figures. It doesn't necessarily to be extremely accurate figures, but it could easily give us a sense of whether it's going to worth investing in that, how much it's going to worth investing in that, or if it's it's just a nonsense from economic standpoint, because it's just trying to improve tiny figures that won't make that much change at the end. And this means that you mentioned 2 points. You mentioned that I wanted to discuss right now, which is benchmarks, and which is the IBF forecasting calculator. Those are two different things. Let's start with benchmarks. So we all heard of those fantastic bold claims that state that if you're improving your accuracy by 1%, you're going to get XYZ wonderful improvements in operations or gains or cost reduction, etc. I know that there are a few people that are raising concerns about those benchmarks. I'm myself, I would say, skeptical regarding those. Let me clarify, because it's I'm not saying those are wrong or those are lies. Not at all. Those are true figures, and I'm totally sure that the companies where it's been assessed and measured have effectively experienced this improvement in their own. So those are definitely totally true. What I'm concerned about is I don't think it's one could easily translate it from one context to another, from one company to another, sometimes from one department to one another within the same company, or from one subsidiary to another, because there are so many things that can change in the context that would make those figures just not comparable. For me, it's literally comparing apples to oranges. So it's from my point of view, it's a fantastic tool to understand that those type of projects are able to create a large amount of value and to make a real change in the company, etc. And to trigger interest, trigger project. But this should not be used as a way to kind of say, okay, this anonymous companies have experienced 1% in turnover. Let's apply 1% in turnover in my company, because we are not selling the same goods. The company's strategy are not the same. The metrics might not be the same. The starting point might not be the same. Some companies have products that are easily forecastable. Some companies have totally different portfolio of products that makes it way harder. Sometimes there's this famous diminishing return laws that says that if the first improvements give way more value than the very last ones, and so the starting point when we say 1% increase, it's really important to know where it's 1% on top of what initial performance. So I'm a bit concerned. Do you and I know that IBF has published such figures. And I'm very impressed.
I've written articles about those figures.
Yeah. And again, I'm not criticizing the figures. I'm just sharing some ones regarding the type of how to use them efficiently, or not to be trapped in a wrong use. are those figures really intended to be used as, okay, let's take those average performance and apply it to your own context? Or is this something that's up to the reader, but that's not encouraged in the way we publicize these figures?
Okay, great question.
And you might disagree. Totally,
No,
I'm
no, no, no,
fairly
no, no.
open.
Yeah, it's a great question. IBF, as I said, we do a lot of research. We have
Yeah,
50,000 people. Let's ask them questions. And
I
one of the
got it.
questions that we do every year is a benchmark study on
Mhm.
forecast air. So we're going to look at forecast air, lag 1, lag 3, lag 12, different levels of aggregation, the skew, the family. So we gather all this, and I think last week in November in here we're going to be putting out a benchmark research of what is the current benchmarks as far as forecast air. We've been doing that for years. I wrote an article how you shouldn't use it for benchmarking. I actually wrote an article on IBF site saying don't use this for benchmarking.
Okay, so
But I get tons of inquiries. I mean, I get people emailing me all the time saying, "Hey, what's the benchmark for our industry and things of that sort?" And we can slice and dice and give you the information. But the problem is, you're right. One company is not going to be the same as another company, and it's dangerous using those as benchmarks. What you're getting is averages, and an average is my feet's in the oven, my head's in the freezer. I'm the perfect temperature in the middle. That's an average. So you can't compare yourself to the averages. What you can is maybe directional. You can say, okay, this is where we can, compared to give you some information to your, executives. Okay. The other thing is our studies we've done IBF is the improvements. You mentioned, we have it calculated. We also have written articles about it. I did some research and looked at a 15-point improvement on forecast accuracy or forecast error is about 2 to 3% to the bottom line on average. Once again, it's on averages. It's about a 1 to 2% top line growth. You're going to get the cost savings. It improves your cash. So looking at the Brahms triangle, it shows the improvements on cash, cost, and service, how you're going to get those 2 to 3% to the bottom line net profit improvement. What can you use that for? Well, it's a good idea as far as if you're trying to sell in ideas. It's a third party, unbiased, because we don't have a dog in the fight, saying, hey, there is value in that. That does not excuse you as the individual practitioner out there working for them to do your own analysis, how that relates to where are you on this distribution curve? It's it's an average. So where are you on the distribution curve? You need to understand your own finances. Are you a customer intimacy type company really focused on the top line growth and service? Are you really a cost efficiency? How is this going to you have a different business model. How does it fit your business model? What are your dollars? What's your starting point? You need to understand it doesn't excuse you from doing your due diligence inside your own organization and understanding the value and then measuring that value on return on my investment, on EBITDA, on top line service, on supply chain costs, on inventory turns. Whatever you're measuring, you have to then measure those as well and have that be your value that you're really defining your project, your implementation, your process improvements on.
Okay, so that's directional information that can say, okay, there's high chances that there's value for you in this specific area. Now do your homework internally and check that and assess that.
Correct.
And hopefully assess that before committing to any specific investment or committing to any specific results as well, because results will depend on your own context and nobody
Yes.
except you can tell you about it.
Yeah, don't use it as a benchmark. Use it as a, hey, the other thing is we have case studies that people saying, hey, I did this, I improved this and everything. You don't, once again, that's not I didn't do that. But what you can get is anything you're reading, anything you're listening to, it's not verbatim. This is how I'm going to adopt it for you. It's, oh, I'm going to take this piece I've learned, this nugget, and apply it to my real world. And now this is how it's going to work. You have to be able to do a little bit of critical thinking and adapt what you learn. That's what we have to do as practitioners.
And I hope it's going to be heard, because I see so many people just using those figures, making some fast computations, and say, okay, I'm going to win that much amount of money, or gain, or minimize costs in this way, which is not the way. And I mentioned that on IBF website, you are offering, the IBF is offering a very valuable and slightly different approach to, which is something you call the forecasting calculator. And it's just an easy tool where you can just plug in your own numbers, depending, that really represent your own specific context, and estimate the potential savings associated to improving the forecast, reducing the error by 1% or whatsoever. And it's really, really well defined. It's really it's not a benchmark, because you're not supposed to put in figures from other companies and expect the same results. It's really results that are customized to your own specific need, and it's a great template to really follow the path, and avoid to forget some figures that are really important. It's a great checklist as well to ensure that you're not missing an important point. And you, at the end, you get some monetized expectations, given the figures you put as an input, and that's pretty well done. And at first I thought this calculator was a benchmark. It was used as a benchmark, and I was so bad about people using that. And then I played it myself, and I find it really, really interesting and helpful.
Thank you very much for that, because you understand the purpose of it. It's not necessarily a benchmark, but it gets you to think about different types of inputs that you may not have thought about. Thinking about things more holistically, thinking about converting a error to a value. It gets you thinking those ways, and it also gets you thinking about the difference between an over forecast and an under forecast. They're not the same. We need to measure that as well, and understand the different values you're getting from each one as well. So I appreciate exactly what you're saying. It's not the benchmark, but it's a great tool to help you start thinking out the process that you need to internally of what's going to go into this calculation. What do I need to consider? What's the difference? What do I need to really start focusing on then? And how can that possibly translate into true value for my organization? That's exactly what it's for.
And do you receive feedbacks from companies who used this calculator and said, okay, it really helped and we effectively did it? Or do you have some statistics saying, well, this is the most used feature on our website?
It's
because
not
it's really valuable.
It is valuable, and it's free. I talked about, we're about fostering the growth of our field. It's a free tool. What are you talking about? It's actually free out there for people as well. And it's built on the research that we've done from IBF. So that's what helps compile this, is all that research that we do. And we got a lot of great feedback from companies that have used it to help start a new project that they're starting. And you meant it was a starting point. It was then the next step was internally, can you do that? And we've had companies reach out to me personally saying, hey, I love the tool you have. Can you help me with that next step internally of helping deciding, what is the true value of an error inside of organizations? And I help point them in that direction and work with them on that as well. So it's exactly what you're saying. There's a lot of use for it and a lot of companies that have utilized it beyond that as well.
Definitely. That's such an important point, and at the same time is flying. We're almost to the end of this podcast. Next time I'm gonna add some more minutes to my schedule to be sure to keep on discussing. But this basically means there's still a lot of things we could discuss and share about that. It's really been a pleasure having you to discuss predictive analytics. I think you are definitely one of the most experienced people on that. And thank you so much for accepting to join, to share your experience. I'm pretty sure that following this the listening of this episode, people would have some questions. So if they want to go online and learn more about your work at IBF, or follow you on social media, or connect with you, where should they go?
For IBF, it's ibf.org, real simple. If you want to find me, I'm Eric at ibf.org. That's Eric at ibf.org. That's my email address if you want to reach out to me personally. And please, I answer emails, so reach out to me. If you want to find me on my socials, LinkedIn's probably by far the best. It's at Wilson Demand is my LinkedIn, or if you find Eric Wilson, Predictive Analytics, or Eric Wilson IBF, you're going to find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I highly recommend, because I like to see what other people are doing. I share content there, but I love to see what other people are sharing as well, and be able to share that. So find me on LinkedIn. It's the best place.
And that's how we connected first. And
Yes.
at first I thought that Eric at ibf.org was a fake address, you know. Actually, you did answer, and thank you very much. To conclude the episode, I have the usual question, you know. This podcast is all about discussing return on investment, value in supply chain. Do you have any recommendations? Might be people, might be books, might be papers, might be whatsoever, that would be relevant to the audience and that would be worth discussing in the following episode?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of great books out there. Brahm has this great book talking about the supply chain triangle and supply chain KPI. If you really want to link forecasts and supply chain processes to value, return on capital employed, and what that means to an organization, he has a great book. Jonathan has a great book on the histories of forecasting, but it's also really goes into bias in there, and that's a big thing that's impacting us as well. So those are two great books that I've recently, got my hands on that I would recommend. As far as from a personal side, IBF, I said we got a ton of practitioner articles out there that you can access. Journal of Business Forecasting, Demand App Branding. There's lots of history of articles that talk about some of this stuff as far as value. I've had people on my podcast talking about the same exact topic. So there's a lot of material out there if you want to get a hold of that material, that I'd highly recommend understanding that.
Fantastic.
And then, of course, continue to watch Value Matters, because this is the next podcast that's going to really focus on this topic. But we need more people talking about this stuff out there.
Yeah, and happy to hear that I'm really targeting the right people, given I interviewed you, I interviewed Jonathan, I interviewed Bram. So we are on the right path, you know.
You are on the right path.
The cutting edge podcast. Great to hear. It's really be both. I'm really thankful, and it's really fun having you, Eric. So thank you very much for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it as well, and that we will be able to catch at some point, might be in Europe or in the US, whatsoever. But I'll be more than happy to follow up and to share with you and with the audience more about those topics. Thank you very much, Eric.
All right, ciao.
Ciao. So here we are. Thank you also for your time, dear listeners. I hope you enjoyed this episode, that you find value in it, just as you find value in the previous ones. This podcast, as I keep saying it, is really yours. I mean, that's 100% true. So if you have any suggestions, any idea about people to interview, topics to be covered, please connect with me and share your ideas. I'm really listening to you. And the best way to do so is basically to connect on LinkedIn and get in touch. That's the best way. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others. Leave a rating, leave a comment, a review, and of course, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're not going to miss any coming episode. Again, thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join us soon again. And in the meantime, don't forget, in supply chain more than anywhere else, value matters. Bye-bye.